Okay, so hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from today. We've got people joining from all over, it seems. So that's great to see. Oh wow. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for our next episode in the Smart Partnerships webinar series. Today we'll be talking about strengthening protected area management with smart competence tools. So as I've already mentioned, there are a few familiar faces here today, but for everybody, hi, my name's Callum Ryan. I am the Smart Capacities Support Officer at Rewild and Smart Partnership. So yeah, it's been a couple of years now since the Smart Competences were released. And since their release, they've been widely adopted across the Smart community. All the way from the site level and beyond for helping guide us for more effective protected area management, but also from the individual practitioner level too, helping to list out specific skills, knowledge, attitudes, general capacities that we should strive to acquire to be more effective smart users, both from a technical perspective, so the use of smart technology, but also from an operational perspective too, helping to show us what we should be doing to be more operationally effective with smart use, to leverage the platform to support adaptive management. So it's also great to see that this resource has been expanded into the competence assessment tool, which is another great resource in our toolkit, which can help us assess and measure these competences for a wide range of applications, which we'll get into more today. So, there we go. Before we hand over to our speakers, I'll just quickly go over the agenda and introduce our speakers too. So after this, I'll hand over to our next speaker, who will be discussing the role of competences and SMART in informing and supporting adaptive management and protected area management effectiveness, which you may also hear being referred to as PAMI. After this, I'll hand over to the next speaker, who will give an overview of some of the competence registers and also the assessment tools. And after that, you'll all have an opportunity to get involved in an interactive demonstration of the SMART Competence Assessment Tool, where you can all fill out one of the self-assessments, which you should have received an email inviting you to do, and we'll go through the results on screen. And then after this, I'll hand over to our case study speaker today. So we've got two case studies, one presented on an identical webinar yesterday, and another one joining us today, both of which are talking about their applications of the competence assessment tool in a real world example and why it was useful to them. If you would like to view both of these case studies, which I recommend you do because they are very helpful, they are both recorded, and I will put them together and add them to the end of this webinar recording, which will be posted on the Smart Partnerships YouTube channel. And then after this, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions or give any feedback about the topics discussed today. Just a bit of quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, please either post them in the chat and we will get round to them later in this session today. Or just hold on to your questions, and then at the end of this webinar, we'll have plenty of time to go over any questions you may have. So just introducing our speakers today. We're very lucky to be joined by Tobias, my colleague from Rewild, who's going to be giving us an overview of competences and SMART and how they're useful for adaptive management and protected area management effectiveness. Erica and Mara from ProPark, who helped construct the competence register and the competence assessment tool. Yesterday, we were joined by Regina from Bahamas National Trust, who gave us a great case study of their use of the competence assessment tool. And today, we're joined by Carlo from the d'Aberville Foundation, who's going to be providing our second case study. So without further ado, I will hand over now to Tobias, who will give you an overview and an introduction to this entire topic. Thank you, Tobias.
Yes, thanks, Callum. Good morning, everyone from San Sebastián in Spain. Thanks for having me. It is my first time in this webinar series, and I'm really happy to be here. So let's share the screen. So as Callum said, I've been asked to give a bit of a big picture introduction to this topic here today, and basically to answer the question how SMART and competences, and then also SMART competencies, can contribute to adaptive management of protected and conserved areas, and then overall to their management effectiveness. I have about 10 minutes to do that, so I will jump straight in. And basically in these 10 minutes, I would like to convince you of a couple of things. First, probably the easiest one, given the attendance here today, effectiveness is critical to global biodiversity targets, particularly the target 3 of the CBD Global Biodiversity Framework, but also to others. Second, that in turn, competence-based approaches are critical for achieving protected and conserved area effectiveness at the site level, but perhaps even more at the system level. Third, that this general rule, i.e. that competence-based approaches can contribute a lot to management effectiveness, applies particularly to the use of SMART in the context of PCA management. Fourth, then also introducing the adaptive management perspective and how this is critical for PCA effectiveness, and bringing this all together, setting the scene also for the contributions after my talk, that effective use, and thereby I mean also use that is supported by a strong competence framework of SMART, enables and strengthens adaptive management of protected and conserved areas, and hence management effectiveness. So first kind of message. I assume that most of you will agree that it is not enough to create, but it is also necessary to effectively manage protected and conserved areas so that they can effectively contribute to bringing about biodiversity outcomes. Yes. So that is kind of logical and kind of accepted in our community. But the interesting thing is that this is also increasingly recognized and kind of officially acknowledged in the global biodiversity framework. The target 3 explicitly includes a requirement for effective conservation and management, the target 3 of the global biodiversity framework under the Convention on Biological Diversity, I should say. And that also then contributes to or helps this target 3 actually to contribute to other targets of the framework, for instance, target 4 on halting species extinction, or target 2 on stopping degradation of ecosystems. And this kind of existing and increasing focus on effectiveness in these global targets is also reflected in monitoring requirements and new monitoring requirements on protected area management effectiveness. Just a month ago, the World Conservation Monitoring Center, together with other partners, published a guide on the disaggregation of the headline indicator for the 30 by 30 target by management effectiveness, i.e. from now onwards, CBD parties are encouraged to not only report how many hectares or acres of protected areas they have, but also which part of these areas is effectively managed. There are, within this framework, there are several data fields, kind of disaggregation criteria, you could say sub-indicators for this headline indicator defined, one of which is also on conservation outcomes, really the kind of endpoint of many of the effort of protected and conserved areas. And this will be reported in the global database on protected area management effectiveness, which will also lead to increased demand for not only assessing and reporting, but also improving protected area management effectiveness at the national level and at the site level. So there will also be increasing incentives to people like many of you who work at the site level to measure and improve this. And that kind of makes the whole use of SMART and so on even more relevant, and thereby our discussion today. So moving on, competence-based approaches are critical for PCA effectiveness, particularly at the system level. The backup to this statement I take mainly from this WCPA publication from 2016 or 18? 16, which was compiled by my colleague Mike Appleton, but to which, among many others, also our colleagues from the POPAC Foundation, who are here today, Erica and co-workers, contributed a lot. So why are these approaches so important for management effectiveness? First, they allow linking individual or organizational capacity development in the protected area sphere. So in order to reach better results on effectiveness, protected areas need to become more effective as organizations. And as part of that, they need to enable their staff to be more focused, more targeted in the way they fulfill their specific functions within these management agencies and PA administrations simply. And a key way of achieving this is exactly these competence-based approaches, because they allow things like developing job descriptions, which basically link the function of people within an administration or an agency to their individual skills requirements. They allow to conduct training needs assessments, design curricula, and help individual PCA staff with their personal development planning. So that's one big complex of reasons why these approaches can contribute so strongly to PCA effectiveness. Another is that recognition of PCA professionals and integration into national accreditation systems can also be supported through these approaches. Many kind of public sectors in many countries have these accreditation systems, which are also competence-based, and the PCA competences allow kind of slotting into this broader system, and thereby can also improve recognition of professionals and thereby also of administrations, and in some cases also improve resourcing, which in turn also contributes to effectiveness. Competence-based approaches also allow for a standardization of roles across PCA systems, and thereby facilitate staff mobility. For instance, if you are a senior PCA planning specialist in your home PCA, but as defined by a national competence-based job description, you should be able to move to other PCAs within the same the national system quite easily, and that is actually a benefit of this as well. And then finally, because these competence-based approaches define individual capacity building from the result and not from the method, they're actually quite open to the specific methods, or quite agnostic, quite flexible in terms of the specific methods that are employed to actually reach these capacity building results. And that allows for the use of a broad and often engaging, depending on who does it, attractive and effective way of didactical training, implementation and teaching methods, and so on. Okay, so this is why competencies in general are so important for PCA effectiveness. And SMART competencies are just one special case of this general rule, but they are a particularly strong case because, as you know, SMART is quite technical. Various groups of practitioners must do various things right for SMART to function to its full potential. And that's why, again, competence-based rules are particularly effective and a great way of achieving this. That kind of is the justification of my third point here. Let's then move on to to the next point, adaptive management is also critical for protected and conserved area effectiveness at all levels. First of all, what do I mean by adaptive management? Basically, what you see on this cycle here, which is kind of the SMART version of a generic adaptive management cycle, as it is also used in the conservation standards and similar. Yeah? Adaptive management is the integration of situation analysis, design, implementation, monitoring, and learning in an often cyclical and often iterative pattern. It is ideally a collaborative process, which also helps keeping various staff onto one page regarding plans. It allows testing assumptions and adjusting PCA management based on lessons learned and changing conditions. Enables learning not only within but also across sites, because it allows to check assumptions, to systematically review monitoring results, to revise management strategies, and so on. So also adaptive management can build on various information sources, research and monitoring, but also local knowledge, and then this iterative learning, which is also embodied in this cycle here. So when it functions, adaptive management keeps PCAs on track towards maintained or improved effectiveness through the cycle. However, as perhaps some of you are aware, often adaptive management doesn't function well, because actually some of these steps can be quite difficult to take. So it's actually important to make adaptive management as easy as possible for PCA managers. And that's, in my view, where SMART comes in. If we look once more at the cycle, which I introduced in the previous slide, and you ask yourself, which of these 5 major steps, which forms parts of this cycle here, can be supported and informed by SMART, you will actually find lots of things or lots of ways in which SMART can contribute there. For instance, historical SMART data can improve the first step here, the understanding of the context in which an area operates, you know, the biodiversity and its status, threats, and so on, existing or past management measures. SMART can also help in the second step to design management strategies, particularly when it comes to patrolling and monitoring plans, as you know. But then one obvious step where it is particularly important is this third step here, implementation and monitoring of PCA management. SMART can help obviously develop specific work and patrolling plans, can be used in monitoring and surveillance, and can also support evidence-informed rapid response, i.e. using real-time data to address urgent threats while as part of the broader management, which is aimed at more long-term conservation goals. Yes, and that, I guess, will even be stronger with the soon to come development or merger with EarthRanger to Circa. So a strong role of SMART to support the third step of adaptive management. Similar in this fourth step here, analyze and adapt. SMART can be used to process and visualize field data, generate reports, and so on, and then can thereby also support the evaluation of progress towards management goals and decision-making on changes and, you know, additions, modifications of management strategies. So these are, I've kind of picked these 2 steps because they are the richest ones, but in most steps you have some way in which SMART can contribute to adaptive area management. And therefore it is also an important instrument to contribute to management effectiveness in general. Obviously, that's not the only way, but that's just one more way of looking at this and one more justification to promote an effective use of SMART, including a use that is supported by strong competence frameworks, and thereby to strengthen this adaptive management and then management effectiveness in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tobias, for that introduction. I'd like to hand over now to Erica, who will be giving us an overview of some of these competence registers and assessment tools. Thank you, Erica.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Hello from Romania, from the Carpathian Mountains, where we have a very nice, shiny, sunny day. So let me first introduce a few general aspects about the competence registers and the competence tools, which are useful for protected and conserved areas. And then I'll hand over to my colleague, Mara, to conduct the exercise promised by Callum a bit earlier. So I'm going to speak about competence registers and cats. I hope you like cats. Let's see what it is all about. So you'll learn, you'll see, you'll have an overview on competence registers, competence assessment tools, and we'll go a bit more in detail, as much as a few minutes can allow, in the SMART Competence Register and the SMART CAT. And then you'll have a few minutes for a self-assessment exercise, and we'll see together the results. Competence. Are we understanding the same thing when we say competence? Let's see. Most of the time I hear people saying, well, competences are about the skills we need in our work. Is it only about skills? It is about skills, yes. About the ability to perform a task reliably and consistently. But these skills have to have associated knowledge. The understanding of the technical and theoretical background of the task. And we get these from our formal education system or from various training events, capacity building events inside our organization, or through projects and so on. But it is also about attitude. However skillful we are, however knowledgeable we are, if we do not like our jobs, if we do not go with pleasure to meet our colleagues and work with our colleagues and do our work, we might not be so competent, actually. Because competence means the intersection of all of these. So we all need to have the skills, the knowledge, and the right attitude, a positive attitude to our tasks to be really competent. I hope we all have this image in our minds for the rest of the discussions, because these competencies are reflected, the competencies for protected and conserved area management are reflected in some competence registers. The one that Tobias was presenting, the Global Register for Competencies for Protected Area Practitioners, is actually, I think, is the basis of all the other competence registers. Everything that was developed, at least for our sector, our domain, is based on this global register. So you will hear references to it several times today. And it is also important now maybe to mention that, well, it says competence register. And if we refer to the previous slide, competencies are about skills, knowledges, and attitude. But I think you can all guess, if you, even if you didn't necessarily go into reading these registers, that attitudes are a bit difficult to reflect in these competence registers. However, I can say as a trainer and as a ProPark member that we always include in our training curriculums the thoughts for the attitudes, and we try to develop also aspects related to attitude. So we really try to have a competence-based assessment And the framework is provided by this global register of competencies for protected area practitioners. From this one, the Global Ranger Competencies Register was derived to simplify to a certain extent the competence lists for rangers globally. And even if it doesn't seem very directly linked, the SMART Competence Register is very much in connection with the Global Register and the Ranger competencies. And if you look carefully into the SMART Competence Register, you will see what I mean. And you can also make cross-references, or you will find cross-references to the Global Register of Competencies in the SMART Competence Register. And the registers are nice and fine and useful, but you need a lot of time to compile from the list of 300 competencies from the Global Register, lists which are useful for you individually as competence lists or for your teams. So there were efforts made to simplify the use of the registers, and therefore, hence we have competence assessment tools. These are, I'm referring to online tools. Probably some of you are already familiar with some of this. And what you see on the screen now is where you get, if you go to this link on this slide, a link which takes you to a platform that we, ProPark, try to assemble for an easier access to all the competence assessment tools. And you will see here the Global Register Competence Assessment Tool, but the newer version, the second version, which is still in a testing phase. And this is something that ProPark works on as we speak. Hopefully we'll have the final tested version by the end of the year. So now, if you want to use the Global Register Competence Assessment Tool, you will have to go to this link, Protected Area Competence.org, which is the actual still valid competence assessment tool for protected area and conserved area practitioners. But our platform has also the SMART assessment, competence assessment tool, and you can access it from here directly. And has also some other tools which are relevant now only for the European protected and conserved areas, because they are linked to the Natura 2000 network. But what we are going to concentrate on today is the SMART Competence Assessment Tool. And I would like to present just very briefly some of the details from the register and the online tool. First of all, I want to say that developing the register was a long process with many people around the world involved. Maybe some of you, I can't see the list of participants now, but maybe some of you are seeing your names in this table, which is a kind of a core group that contributed to this competence assessment, SMART Competence Assessment Register, Competence Register, sorry. And we had many online meetings and lots of comments on the document before having the final version, which you see today. And our objective was to try and have the competencies needed for the use of SMART as clearly described as possible and adaptable to anywhere in the world, to any protected and conserved area team or national SMART teams. The register is organized around competence categories. So we have 4 categories for the SMART Competence Register. And for each of the categories, you have a code, a title, and a brief description. So the code, for example, is EEE, which means establishing the enabling environment. And this category comprises all the competencies which are needed for establishing the enabling environment and the operational framework for SMART. The DDM category, Development, Deployment, and Management of SMART, is referring to the competencies which you just heard. So the category, the title of the category, I think, is self-explanatory. Same with FDC, Field Data Collection category. And we have the final one, Analysis, Reporting, and Adaptive Management, with all the competencies needed to do this rather difficult part of for the SMART use, the one that Tobias was presenting as a very important one for the adaptive management. And let's see now how this register is organized. We spoke, or I presented so far, the categories, and you should understand that these categories are, or in these categories, the competencies are organized by staff levels in the register. And the 4 levels you see on the screen now are exactly the levels used in the global competence register. And they refer, the level 1 is field staff, called ranger in some countries, and I don't know, warden in some other countries, and many, many other titles. Level 2 is the middle manager, technical specialist level. So this level means, level 2 means people who have responsibilities for the technical aspects in the protected and conserved areas, like the biologist or ecologist, and the head of the ranger service or the IT specialist. Then we have the senior manager at the protected and conserved area level, and this is level 3, and the executive level 4, which refers to the national level, agency, ministry level teams. These staff levels are translated in the SMART Competence Assessment Tool into SMART roles. So let's see how the SMART roles are defined and how do they link to these levels. As I said, the rangers or similar are level 1. Conservation management officer, IT specialist, head of ranger are level 2. Protected and conserved area manager or director are level 3. The national coordinator, the coordinator of the national SMART actually is a level 4 staff, and the IT specialist and biodiversity specialist who are working for the national SMART implementation of SMART at national level, they are level 2. But if you can make with your eyes the link to the management, to the competence categories, you will see that actually the various roles have competencies from all or some of the competence categories. The tool is actually providing you or whoever is using the competence assessment tool with lists of competencies, of combinations of competencies from all or some of the categories, depending on the SMART role. For example, the ranger or similar level 1 would have most of the competencies from the field data collection category, but they do have some competencies from the establishing the environment, the enabling environment category, and the analysis, reporting, and adaptive management categories. Of course, most of the ARA competencies or the EEE competencies are at level 3 and a bit in level 2. So the lists of competencies that you are working with are a combination of competencies from the various categories depending on the roles you have in the SMART team. This is a table Don't worry, we are not going through into details on this, but this is exactly describing what I just said about and it's showing the relationship between the staff levels and SMART roles. And this is how the register describes a competence. So we have the overall competence definition for the category. And then we have for each competence, we have an overall statement of the competence and a summary a summary for the supporting knowledge needed for the competence. What you see on the first column is the level code. EEE2 means this is a competence from the category establishing and enabling environment. And it's the competence is EEE 2.2, supervise and motivate individuals and teams implementing SMART. This means that this competence is for level 2. The EEE 2 is level 2 staff, and the number of the competence is 2. So when you will do the assessment in your test or exercise today, you will see these codes. The first number is indicating the staff level you are associated with. This is again a nice colorful presentation in the register on how the various levels and the categories relate to, the competence categories relate to each other. And I'm not going to discuss very much about how to use and for what should we be or you or all of us use the competence registers for, because this was already presented in a few words by Tobias. But what I would like to emphasize a bit is how we used, well, when I say we, I'm referring to ProPark and not the SMART Competence Register, but the Global Register of Competencies. We developed and we conducted lots of training needs assessment, training needs assessment based on this register and using the tool developed by Mike Appleton and IUCN. And we also registered an occupational standard, an occupation and an occupational standard in Romania for protected and conserved areas. And that is the protected area specialist level 2 middle management occupation. So this means that we in Romania, I think it's first in the world, we have an occupation and occupational standard developed for a middle management level in protected and conserved areas. And we used a competence-based approach with a tool offered by the Global Register. And of course, we are developing our training curricula with using this Global Register and recommend developing job descriptions in protected and conserved areas using these competencies. The tool itself, once you receive an invitation to be part of a group, a competence assessment group, a SMART competence assessment group, as you did receive an email from Callum for this webinar, once you access your link, you have to register an account. And this will be part of the exercise today if you didn't already register an account based on the email received. But this is your landing page. And once you created an account, you can see these tabs on your screen. And this is actually what the competence assessment tool has for you. A brief introduction, also explaining how you conduct your self-assessment. Then you have a possibility to set up a group or several groups if you want. You are an assessor. You can see your assessment. You have a detailed user guide for assessors and possibilities to do analysis across the group see the results of your assessments and some more information about this process of developing the SMART competence assessment tool. What you can use the tool for is the same, just like the register. The difference is that the tool allows you to quickly produce lists of competencies as you need, either for a training or a job description or a person. And this is really, really nice to be able in a few minutes to produce all these results. And once you conduct an assessment for a group, you can see the results in various ways, but we'll go into details after the exercise, because you are going to see these various result types directly from what you are going to do today, and Mara will present the results. Just be aware when you are doing your exercise that we have these categories. Hopefully you all remember them. Don't worry, you don't have to remember them. You will have the description, as I said, and details of the competencies for each competence you have to assess for yourselves today. But what I would like to show you is the scale you are going to use for your exercise, and the scale that is being used generally for the self-assessment or for the assessments conducted through interviews with your human resource manager or your manager or with your colleague. Whatever way is chosen for conducting the competence assessment, this is the scale that is being used. 0 means not relevant. This competence is not relevant for my job. And here I would like to say that you really, really have to think about it. If what you are ticking here is you are ticking 0 because it is not relevant and not because you don't want to do that certain task or to which the competence refers. So this is about the competencies which for you in your job description are not indicated as needed. And then you have the ones, scale 1, which means little or no experience. You have all this text on your assessment form, so you don't have to remember them. I'm just trying to explain, but one means that you do not have experience or very, very, very little, competence. 2 means you have some competence, but you still need quite a lot of training and development. 3 means you are very good, your competence is high. And 4 means that you can even teach others. And of course, that always or very often happens in real life. The very experienced and competent people do share their knowledge and help others to develop competencies either internally or even in training events. If I would see people with 4, scoring 4 with some competencies in an assessment, I would reach out to them and invite them to become ProPark trainers, for example. So the form you are going to see in your exercise looks like this. So you have very clear description of the competence. The explanation of the competence. Please read carefully and try to be as honest as possible with yourselves, first of all. And whenever you are conducting competence assessments using this tool, just think about the fact that this is a tool that should help you and your managers to plan your competence development for the future, to see what you need to improve your performances. So this is really the basis for future capacity building plans, either for you individually or for your team. So the test today is might be interesting for some of you because we might not have received the role you are having in a SMART team, or maybe you are not yet involved in the SMART implementation yet. So in this case, you were allocated as a level, the competence list as a level 2 technical staff. And I think, Mara, am I correct, as a biodiversity conservation specialist. So it might be that you do not recognize as applicable any of the competencies you received, but I would kindly invite you to just assess what is your level of competence on the list for the competencies in the list you received today, even if you do not have necessarily the specific SMART role for which you were invited. So I'm handing over now to Mara, and she will explain you how the invitation works and how you were allocated, or how the level was allocated to you, and what you have to do in this exercise. Thank you.
Hello. So nice to meet you all. You already received 2 emails regarding our exercise today. One was from Callum explaining you that you will receive a second email from automatically generated from the competence assessment platform. And this is the important email for you now, because following the steps described in your email, you have to create an account on the platform and then return to the email and accept the invite to be part of SMART webinar group, our group for today. You were invited from the platform, you were invited to a certain SMART role, the one you selected in the registration form, or if you didn't select it, you were allocated to a level 2 a role. So that's why you've been put in a certain level. But the others were allocated exactly on their selected role on the formula. So I will just share you the landing page where you will be automatically put after you accept the invite. And this is the one. Here you will have to assess your competences. Some personal data are required from you at the beginning. They are used for statistics and analysis in the future. And of course, you have to give your consent, your agreement that your results will be used in analysis, general analysis, but not with your name associated with the assessment. And after you save your data here, you will be led to the assessment page, and you will go to 10 competences that you need to assess your level. If you already did this previously, or yesterday or today morning, it's okay. You will have a 10-minute break. Otherwise, you are invited to do this now. And if you have any questions, we are here to help you. So, Callum, do we have like 10 minutes to do this?
Yes, we've got 10 minutes. We'll come back at 10:05, UTC, sorry. And then we'll go through the results together.
Okay. So I will share again my screen to show
Just
you
a minute, Mara, to explain the
Yeah.
colors first, please. So the colors you see associated to the scale, I didn't mention previously, but these are related to the graphics you are going to see. So just red is the ones, yellow is the 2 scale answers, green is for the 3, and blue for the 4. So if you look to the graphics, these are the colors which you are going to see and give you some very quick overview of the results.
Yes, the explanation of the colors. It's available at the beginning of the results tab. So you don't have to keep this in mind. So there we are. For your assessment group, the SMART webinar group, we have the combined results from all of you, all the assessments submitted by each of you. Those are the colors Erica already explained. Very important is that competencies scored scored 0 with gray color are not taken into consideration because, you know, statistics, 0 is not taken into consideration in statistics. You have a couple of tabs that are presenting your assessment group results. And as you can see, no names are here, so we don't know who assessed what. The results overview, of course, the name tells you what it's about. And you can see on this overview graph how many percentages for each category were scored for with 1 and 2, so lower competences, and with green and blue, meaning high level of competences. So your group, it's a half-half, let's say it's an equilibrated group, which I was expected because you are very diverse and with very different backgrounds and experience. And it's quite predictable that you will be somewhere in the middle as a group. Then you have the next tab where you have the same results, the same overview, but split it into into SMART roles. So you can analyze separately the rangers, for example, here, or if you scrolled down, the head ranger or similar, the IT specialist, and so on, splitted by SMART roles. The other tab, the next tab, is presenting you the competences by each category and SMART role. So, for example, for the category cell data collection, every role is having a couple of numbers, of statistic numbers, which are indicated the scores, the total 1 scores, total 2 scores, total 3, and so on from the whole group. The median, which is the math median, the number where all the scores are grouping in the middle, not taking into consideration the extremes. The average, which is again math, is the average. And then you have the percentage of competencies scored 3 and 4, meaning great level of competencies, and the competencies scored with 1 and 2, the one with a lower scored level. And at the end, you have the capacity needs indicator, which is between 0 and 1, and indicates you the needs for quickly training or rising competence on this category or this role, as close as it is to 1, as much you need training on this category in our case. Then you have a detailed tab with all the competencies and all the scores, the average score for each competence in every category. You can analyze those two. And the last tab is giving you some directions to consider for capacity building. Here are the lower 10 scored competencies from the whole group. So they might look complicated and difficult to read, but for those of you who plan in the future to be assessor and to create your group and analyze the results, there is a user guide for assessor where you can find extra information, hopefully every information you need for creating the group, assessing the competences, and then read and interpret the results and use the results for your purpose. So that will be about the results in assessment. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mara. I hope you all got a good chance to have a look at this platform. As you can see, it's quite simple and it's very user-friendly, I believe. So if anybody has any questions for this, please wait for the end and we will make sure to answer these. But I'd like to hand off now to Carlo, who's going to give us a great introduction to his case study about how they use the competence tools in the D'Aberville Foundation. Over to you, Carlo.
Callum, and thank you for inviting me. Before I was just a participant, and now I'm on the panelist side. But yeah, my name's Carlo. I'm Carlo, and I work mostly with rangers, indigenous peoples, and the Philippine Department for Environment. I'm a focal person for rolling out SMART in PCAs of Mindoro and doing capacity building for rangers and field data collectors and SMART users as well. So for this presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to walk you through on how we do the SMART CAT here in Mindoro, and what are our thoughts and learnings from these assessments. So just a quick overview of what has been done with the Philippines and Mindoro in terms of SMART implementation in 2018. The Philippines already adopted SMART as a system of monitoring. So most of our PCAs are using SMART already. And on the same year, we did SMART trainings and like a series of SMART trainings here in the island. From 2020 to 2022, there's a decrease of SMART because of the pandemic and the national lockdowns. And of course, the reduction of rangers and SMART users within the island. And then in 2023 until last year, we renewed some of the trainings. So we're giving some trainings to rangers and SMART users for two organizations here in Mindoro. And in 2025, James Late from Rewire as well introduced us to SMART CAT, which is the competence assessment tool that we are now using to prioritize our capacity building activities. So who and where are we working? So we're working with 2 Tamarao sites. So Tamarao is a critically endangered dwarf buffalo, only endemic in Mindoro. And one is we're working with a protected area, which is the Mount Siglit Bacot Natural Park. And for this SMART implementation, we're doing with 2 offices, which is the TCP, or the Tamarao Conservation Program Office. And the second one is the Mount Siglit Bacot Natural Park PA Management Office. Now, when we are doing the SMART trainings, what do we aim for that? One is for us and for the participants to acquire wide range of SMART competences. So the basic one is installing SMART, doing SMART data collection, analyzing SMART, and then also to apply and show these competences in the field and their work environment. Now, it's very hard for us to really assess how our trainings are being translated into the field and are being applied by the participants or our trainees. So what you can see is a picture of me doing the assessment. Before we were not using SMART CAT. I'm just using whatever resources that I can use, right? So I'm referencing the global competences, the BA competences, and SMART competences, and creating a lot of questions and categories that we can fill to assess their competences. But with the introduction of SMART CAT, it became much easier for us really to assess the competency of our rangers and the SMART users that we are training. Now for Smart Cat, we did an assessment phase. So this comprised of 18 rangers and field data collectors. We have 3 smart data managers and analysts, so the smart users. And then we also have 3 decision makers, or the that represents head rangers, community officers, and PA managers. So for a total, I think more than 20 participants were assessed through SmartCat. Now, so what we found out with doing the assessment is that the assessment can be done in 3 different ways, and maybe many more. But for us, what works is, one, that the assessors answers the assessment alone. The second is the assessee answers the assessment alone. And the third one, which is the one that we really like, is both the assessors and the assessee do the assessment together. So I'm going to walk you through some of the pros and cons of each methods that we did. And first would be the assessor will do the assessment for the participants. So the pros are, it's very straightforward. It's not very time consuming, and there's only few resources to spend. For example, there are some rangers that we want to assess, and they're pretty much a long travel to do. So as an assessee, you can really answer the assessments for them. But the cons are, it is very prone to bias, and there's a huge margin of error for incorrect assessment for that person's competency. The second is that it does not build rapport and connection between the assessor and the assessee, and it becomes like a one-sided approach. And also, pretty much the most important one is that the assessee can't express their challenges and difficulties with SMART. So what we think for this is that the preferred participant for like the assessors doing the assessments are pretty much people that are higher ups and does not have much time to do the assessment. So this can include higher ranking officials, PA managers, head rangers, and decision makers. And pretty much, if you are going to do an assessment alone for them, is that it's very important that the assessor knows the skills, knowledge, and competency of that assessee. So that it becomes more realistic and not biased to during the assessment. Then the second one is that we have that the assessee answers the assessment alone. Because the assessment actually is like, if we're going to look at it, it's more of an Excel type of assessment, and the person's just going to answer the questions. So the pros are the same with the first one, and it's not very time consuming, few resources to spend, and very straightforward. But the cons are, it is very prone to under or overestimation of their competency. Second is that there's a difficulty in understanding of questions, resulting to whatever answer. So there are assessees, or like the people that we work with, that they don't understand much of the questions because probably the level of understanding or understanding the questions is very hard for them. So they just put whatever number they can do. Third one is the same, like it does not build rapport and connection between the assessee and the assessor, and the assessee cannot express their challenges and difficulties. So for this kind of method, it will work really well with the same, like assessee with not much time, like the higher ranking officials. And it also works well with IT specialists, or people that has a higher level of understanding English or the questions, such as IT specialists, data managers, analysts, technical staff, and so on and so forth. But it does not work with people with limited level of understanding and literacy. for example, are the IP rangers that we're working with, rangers that are, does not complete higher educational standards. And the third one is the assessor and the assessee do it together. So this is mainly what we did with our assessments. So the pros of this kind of assessment method is that there are much room for clarifications. So the assessee can ask questions or clarifications so that he or she can understand well and answer well with the assessment. Second is that you can see how sincere those answers are, which really affects the assessments. Third is that the under or overestimation of answers can be fixed on the spot. So after you do the questions, you can have some discussions or clarifications and just answer or just fix what can be like an overrated or underrated answers. Fourth is that it's more realistic. The answers are more realistic, and you can really see how much the assessee thinks about the question. The fifth one is that the assessee can express their challenges and needs to fill those competences. As for example, it's very important with trainers that the assessee can explain which kind of training that they can do or want to fill those gaps. And the last one is that uploading to SmartCat site is very easy, because now that you have fixed all the underestimated or overestimated answers, it's just upload to SmartCat and do the analysis. Because before, with the first and second one, you have to really, if there's an underestimation, overestimation of answers, sometimes we have to contact the person that we interviewed, and it takes more time to really finish the assessment. Now, there's only one cons in our case, is that it's very time and resource consuming. I think for IT specialists or for smart data head rangers or decision makers, it takes pretty much 20 minutes of their time to really finish those assessment forms. But this kind of assessment method really works well with rangers and field data collectors, and it suits very well with indigenous peoples rangers or community-based monitoring groups, because they have, in our case, they have a very low level of understanding and literacy, and really the guidance of doing it together produce more realistic answers to the assessments. But really the questions of, I think, every assessment tools is how reliable were the answers to produce a realistic assessment. Now, in our case, we found it's very important, or it's very crucial, that building a long-term relationship with the assessee is makes the answers realistic and makes our work as an assessor much easier. So you can just getting to know with them, joining them for trainings, briefings, patrols, and field works, and from that interaction, you can really calibrate or optimize those answers, and it makes the corrections of those answers much easier for us and an assessor. And I think for us, what really works well is that we did a key informant interview principle. So we followed this kind of principle, that not in a way that they are much knowledgeable, but the assessor trusts the assessee, and the assessee trusts the assessor, because the answers become sincere and the assessments becomes more realistic and reliable. Now, after correcting those answers and doing analysis with SmartCat, now we have this result, which was shown by Mara and Erica. So for us, we see that I'm not going in depth with the result, but we can now see how much or what's the level of competency of our rangers. So this result is for our rangers. Now we see that the average for average score for our rangers is 1.71 for the field data collection and 1.33 for enabling environment. And this now becomes our top priority. This the sweet part of the Smart Cat is that you can directly have a guided and assessment driven capacity building activities that you can do. For example, with our assessments, you can see how much there's a gap between those competences. And we are now trying to fill those gaps by doing some trainings and follow-up refresher courses. Now, with this kind of capacity building activities, we were able to craft 2 smart data training modules. One is for data analysts or smart users, and the field data collectors. Now, these training modules are derived actually from SmartCAT. And crafting of these smart training modules becomes much easier and data-driven from those assessments. So these are just some photos of what we have been doing since the Smart CAT assessment. So we're doing some trainings with smart users, prioritizing on patrols, and really with rangers doing how they can correctly identify observations in the field. So yeah, that's all for me.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll skip to the second slide. So a little bit about BNT. The Bahamas National Trust was established in 1959. It's a science-based nonprofit organization which focuses on protecting endemic and native species within its national park. As you can see from the map, there are about 33 national parks scattered throughout the archipelago of the Bahamas. Well, I shouldn't say the Bahamas, it's scattered throughout the archipelago. There's 33 national parks that the Bahamas National Trust is in care of. That's not all of the national parks inclusive within the national park system, but it is quite a big chunk of it. So, as I mentioned, because the national parks are spread throughout the archipelago, we wanted to find a more concise and accurate way of not only communicating patrol data, but also analyzing it and storing it. Henceforth, the implementation of SMART. So SMART was established or implemented with BNT a few years ago. However, due to capacity, it's not operating at its finest. Not all islands or protected areas are consistently producing data. And a great way of figuring out, I guess, the issues and the kinks was using the SMART Competence Assessment Tool. So one of our main issues is also like training, again, because the spread of wardens, which is what we call our rangers, park wardens, because the spread of wardens are so far and in between from the main hub, which is Nassau, it's kind of expensive to consistently keep up with what is needed to keep up physically the pressure on using a new system to the company. So the Smart Cat, we had about, I also friendly call it the Smart Cat instead of Competence Assessment Tool. So 12 members, including myself, staff members, were assessed, which gave us about roughly 3 SMART roles. This took about a couple of months getting back and forth, basically dealing with people's schedule, and trying to get everybody, I guess, on the same page. Some people were offline. Some people did offline assessments, basically by themselves, as you guys did today. Some were in face-to-face, where it was more of an interview style, and some were on the over the phone. So still an interview style, but a little customized, I guess, to the needs of the staff. So jumping right into it, you may have seen this as Erica and Mara beautifully demonstrated earlier. So for our wardens or park attendants, sorry, we also see that the two of the four categories were not demonstrated here because, as Erica said, the non-relevance categories are not demonstrated or not illustrated within the results for the roles, but you will see it in other slides further down. But for this purpose, what I used it for as the SMART manager and also the training officer here at BNT for SMART was to figure out where the guys were having the most issues. Because a lot of the times you would ask somebody, how's it going? And they said, oh, it's fine, which is not really giving you an insight on what actually is happening. So as we can see from the slide, field data collection is one of the strongest competence out of the two categories that are listed here, which is no surprise to me because BNT has been doing field data collection for years before the implementation of SMART. So some of the skills, the knowledge, and the attitude that are needed to be competent within this area would be seen here. However, EEE enabling the environment still needs some work. So to talk about the SMART manager, myself, as you can see from the get-go, the ARA is lacking confidence. There's a high level of red, which is, if you remember from the previous slides of Mara and Erica's demonstration, that the red means no competence. So when I took this assessment, there was little to no, like I mentioned earlier, the little to no data. There was no practice. It was only like physical knowledge of what I knew, which can be demonstrated here. And in comparison to the wardens, you can see that my field data collection is not my strongest competence, but however, the EEE is, which again, it didn't surprise me because I'm not out there every day collecting data or have years of experience with field data collection. However, I feel like throughout my SMART training, it really gave me a higher level of competence in terms of how the system operates, what the system is expecting to see, and how you should be collecting data, which is why I think the competence within the areas that I have is so high. So lastly, in our last category is the New Providence Parks, sorry, not New Providence, the National Parks Managers. So these are, for all our national parks, we do not currently have managers. Some parks consistently only have wardens, and some parks don't even have wardens. So of the managers that we do have, unfortunately, not all of them were able to take the survey. So this is a snapshot of one manager. However, in my personal opinion, I don't think that if all of the managers had participated, that the graph would have been different. And this is due to the fact that majority of the managers are hands-off when it comes to SMART. So I would expect that their competences in all areas would be low. However, you do see some, which is like, I think yellow is little competence, sorry, which is in the field data collection, which I understand again, which I attribute to BNT being a data collector for years before the implementation of SMART. Another thing I would like to say is, I also feel like this is generally and directly related to the level of consistency we are seeing with SMART, because the managers are kind of hands off and don't really understand what's going on. There's not enough pressure or trickle down education, I would say, to the wardens in order to see the level of success I would like to see with the program. So overall, the assessment, this is the assessment of the wardens. I didn't include myself or the managers, mostly because I feel like, or looking at it, it kind of skewed the results in a way that, I felt like didn't represent what's actually occurring. But in general, the overall results are similar to what you see here. The only difference from the overall face-based versus the wardens is that you'll see, because of the one manager's response, that you'll have more red, which is no confidence, than yellow, which is little confidence. However, what I gained from the results of these assessments is that, one, there is still room to grow, as well as hopefully we can get, before I get there, I'll just want to dive on, I guess, the percentages. So overall, for the BNT, not the graph we're looking at, the graph I was speaking of a little bit earlier, overall, it was about 40% with competent, which is the green. And this graph here is like 31% green. Whereas you can see the largest chunk is limited competence. Hopefully we can, with training, targeted training, thanks to the CAT and understanding exactly where the lack of competence is, we can move some of that yellow and replace it with some more competence. So just to wrap up again, like what I said, I feel like consistent assessments, because right now, I think I'm the only one within the company who has done multiple assessments. Like mentioned earlier, the Global Register of Competence for Protected Area Management. I think I got that right. James introduced that to the BNT a few years ago, with me being the guinea pig. And I also was the first to do this kind of assessment. I think with constant assessments, or at least a follow-up assessment, it'll give a better picture to know which way we're going, as well, coupled with guided, targeted training sessions. You can not only improve field data collection, but the competence in general, thus creating a better way to manage our protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Do we have a question here? Sorry. No. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This was a really great series. For anybody who might have joined yesterday as well, I see a couple of you did. I hope you got even more information from today too. Thank you so much to all of our speakers for joining today and for all the work that you've put into getting this webinar created. And obviously, I'm going to extend thanks as well to that those massive teams which helped create these SMART competences, and all of the other non-SMART related competences too, and the assessment tool. Thank you very much for providing these resources to the community. Regarding this webinar, this has been recorded and will be uploaded to the Smart Partnerships YouTube channel, which will also include our case study from yesterday too, so you can go view that once that's up in the next couple of days. You'll also have access to the presentations today too, which I know will be very useful for those of you who will be going away and hopefully applying this tool in your field of work. And as always, you have the info@smart email on the screen. It's also on the website. I've been in communication with all of you prior to this webinar, so you have my email too. Please, if you have any questions, just send them directly to us. And as well, if you've got any feedback, please, we are always looking for feedback on how to improve these resources for you. And just in general, if you want to let us know how it's all going, please do send us any updates. But apart from that, I'll conclude this webinar here. Just want to say thank you very much to all of the speakers and everybody in the audience today. Thank you very much, and for all of those of you at AtCon as well next week, I'll see you there. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.